Today, I will be sharing the video version of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Event Planning and Programming Guide. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Event Planning and Programming Guide is meant to serve as a community resource. It outlines the steps to identify opportunities and unique challenges when planning events, large or small, in the spirit of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I will be going over the table of contents. Page 3, Introduction. Page 4, Pre-Event Planning. Page 5, Registration. Page 6, Marketing. Page 7, Event Logistics Accommodations. Page 8, Event Logistics Accessibility. Page 9, Moderator, Staff, Volunteer Prep. Page 10, Glossary and Resources. Page 15, Author's Note. And page 16, Acknowledgements. Bolded terms will be defined in the glossary along with linked resources to guide you in DEI work. Page 3, Introduction. This guide meets you where you are at. Identify your organization's starting point and choose items that are realistic for you. Join us in moving the needle towards authentic and inclusive engagement with our community. The first level is foundational. Just starting out, you may have limited time and resources. Choose foundational items. Our next level is intermediate. Have time and resources to commit to DEI? Aim for intermediate items. Our final level is advanced. Looking to expand your DEI work? Implement advanced items. Page 4, Pre-Event Planning. Here are some questions to think through and act on as you plan your event. Foundational. Have we reached out to a diverse group of community partners to find out if there are events where people are gathering that we can participate in? Is our planning team, presenters, and panelists representative of diverse groups? Intermediate. Are our event sponsors and partners committed to promoting and supporting diversity and inclusion? How is this demonstrated? Do we have diverse and locally owned catering for events? Are accessibility needs and inclusive catering options considered when establishing the event budget? Advanced. Are community partners leading the direction of the work? Is there shared decision-making with all parties impacted? Do we engage in consistent outreach to include people at risk of social isolation? Are community partners and participants at the intersections who are most impacted by the topic or issue present and fully participating? Page 5, Registration. Foundational. When possible, ensure that registration form includes the option to enter gender pronouns with the option to print pronouns on attendee name tags. Ask that meeting participants refrain from using tobacco and promote a fragrance-free environment. Intermediate. Ask attendees ahead of time if any accommodations are needed, as well as providing a point of contact for information. Include on sign-up or registration forms. When asking about accommodations, ask what behavioral, physical, or communication challenges need addressing, rather than asking directly about disability. Make it clear that accommodation requests will be met to the best of the organization's ability. Advanced. If possible, send a post-event survey that asks about inclusion and accessibility in the promotional materials, event-related materials, and the event itself. Consider requesting feedback for items from the registration process or pre-event survey, if one was distributed. Examples are dietary needs or other accommodations. Page 6, Marketing. Foundational. Materials, both promotional, such as social media posts, posters, and flyers, and event-related, such as signs and handouts, should be written in plain language. Post signage at welcome or registration table if any portion of the event is being recorded. Ensure that appropriate video and photo releases have been secured to provide protection to those who may feel unsafe about their images being shared. Intermediate. Consider using relevant disability symbols to include on marketing materials. Include alternate format statement in event materials. Provide information about activities and events, including details about accessibility of facilities, transportation options and assistance, children activities, parking reimbursement and validation, etc. Advanced. Materials, both promotional and event-related, should be translated in culturally relevant language and distributed in a variety of mediums to a diverse population. Consider using infographics or other visual materials to be inclusive of those unable to read, and larger font options for those with limited eyesight. Ensure that all materials are accessible by attendees with disabilities, and do not advertise accessibility options that you are not able to accommodate. Make sure that electronic materials are compatible with mobile devices for those without computers. Page 7, Event Logistics, Accommodations. Foundational. During the program, consider having designated reserved seating available for anyone who may need it or request it day of, being mindful of space and ease of accessibility for those in need. When possible, choose a venue that has all gender restrooms or is open to designating specific restrooms as gender neutral. Intermediate. When providing food, make dietary accommodations based on need. When possible, have a longer period with food available to accommodate those with varied eating schedules. Clearly label any buffet-style meals with known allergies and other categories. When possible, provide a private lactation space for nursing mothers, as well as spaces for people to retreat from noise and activity. Advanced. Have a designated staff member or volunteer handle day of accommodation requests and needs. This may include accommodations requested at the time of registration and accommodating individuals using personal assistance care. Page 8, Event Logistics, Accessibility. Foundational. Ensure that aisles, washrooms, and the stage are accessible and wide enough for mobility, wheelchair, and a guide dog. Check to make sure there's accessible parking and ramps close to the main entrance to the event. When possible, choose a venue that is accessible by public transportation. Be mindful of the public transportation schedule. Intermediate. Be mindful that event dates and times do not conflict with special events, such as religious ceremonies, celebrations, or special days. Consider seasonal earning schedules and school schedules when planning events. Advanced. If possible, when needed, add translation and interpretation, hire sign language services, or offer assistive learning devices or closed captions if audience members request services. Page 9, Moderator, Staff, Volunteer Prep. Foundational. When applicable, use Indigenous land acknowledgement protocols in opening remarks. Request that meeting facilitators, speakers, staff, volunteers, and participants limit the use of jargon and acronyms. Intermediate. Pre-plan how moderator and organizer will solicit questions and feedback from the audience in order to ensure that underrepresented perspectives are included. Train staff and volunteers to use preferred pronouns. Prepare moderators with panelists' preferred pronouns, identification, and correct name pronunciation. Advanced. When inviting moderators and speakers, include language on issues you would like to address to gauge comfort levels and fit for conversation. Ensure that the moderator is prepared to handle sensitive subjects related to race, gender, orientation, ability, etc., that may arise as part of these discussions. Prep presenters, exhibitors, staff, and volunteers to avoid using language that may be offensive. This could include anything that might be sensitive or offensive to the specific cultural and demographic makeup of this audience or population. Page 10, Glossary and Resources. Accessible. Design that is welcoming and enables full participation by and full inclusion of people with disabilities. Proactively building an inclusive environment. Examples may include ramps and grab bars, Braille and sign language, quiet room availability, and inclusive curriculum design. Accommodations. Individualized modification for someone to gain access. Examples of physical accommodations include assistive devices, reserved parking spaces, and clearing aisleways. Examples of non-physical accommodations may include providing additional time and delivering information through a variety of mediums. All gender restrooms. Restrooms that everyone is able to use, regardless of their gender identity, expression, and/or embodiment. If possible at the venue, designate a restroom as all gender by posting a sign on the door that states, all gender restroom. If an all gender restroom is already designated, consider posting a sign at the gender binary restrooms, such as, all gender restrooms are located at, to direct people who prefer to use the all gender restroom to the appropriate location. Alternate formats. Include alternate formats statement in event materials. For example, you can get this document in other languages, large print, Braille, etc., free of charge here. Assistive learning devices. Assistive devices are external devices that are designed, made, or adapted to assist a person to perform a particular task. Examples may include hearing aids, mobility aids, and closed captioning. Page 11, Glossary and Resources continued. Children's activities. Note that children's activities is not the same as childcare. Childcare can only be provided by licensed childcare providers. Children's activities can include age-appropriate crafts and games and supervision. Consistent outreach. This practice allows for inclusive, equitable, and diverse engagement for events. In order to invite and include varying communities, outreach must be clear, culturally relevant, and intentional. Dietary accommodations. Examples may include kosher, halal, vegetarian, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, etc. Clearly label any buffet-style meals with known allergies and other categories. Consider offering snacks or pre-packaged food in addition to the main meals. Disabilities. Describes the interaction between people living with impairments and the limitation of opportunities to fully engage in society due to social, cultural, and environmental barriers. Example of barriers may include prejudice and stereotypes, inflexible organizational procedures and practices, inaccessible information, buildings, and/or transportation. To indicate disability resources at your venue, consider using disability symbols. If you have other questions, please reach out to the Walla Walla Valley Disability Network. Page 12, Glossary and Resources continued. Diversity. Human diversity means valuing and honoring differences among people. Diverse places are composed of people with varying characteristics, including but not limited to religious and political beliefs, gender, race, ethnicity, education, class, physical and mental abilities, sexual orientation, and geographic location. Fragrance-free environment. Ask that meeting participants refrain from using tobacco and products with fragrance. The following statement can be included in meeting announcements and invites. Insert name of organization. Strives to ensure the comfort and safety of staff and visitors by requiring a smoke-free environment and encouraging a fragrance-free environment. Gender pronouns. Pronouns are basically how we identify ourselves apart from our name. It's how someone refers to you in conversation, an indication that you understand that gender expression does not equal gender identity, that you are not judging people just based on the way they look, and making assumptions about their gender beyond what you actually know about them. This linked resource is a comprehensive guide to understanding gender identity and pronouns. Health equity. Everyone has a fair and just opportunity to be healthy. This requires removing obstacles to health, such as poverty, discrimination, and their consequences, including powerlessness and lack of access to good jobs with fair pay, quality education and housing, safe environments, and healthcare. Page 13, Glossary and Resources Continued. Inclusion. Identifying, understanding, and removing barriers to full participation and belonging, and intentionally including additional differences in a group or process. Indigenous land acknowledgement. For non-Indigenous communities, land acknowledgement is a powerful way of showing respect and honoring the Indigenous peoples of the land on which we work and live. Acknowledgement is a simple way of resisting the erasure of Indigenous histories and working towards honoring and inviting the truth. Intersections and intersectionality. The interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender, as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. Examples may include people of color with disabilities, queer women of color, a Christian person experiencing homelessness. Plain language. Avoid using acronyms, overly academic language, and/or jargon. Consider using a readability analyzer to ensure language accessibility and comprehension. Page 14, Glossary and Resources Continued. Public transportation. Use your city's local public transit route map to choose a venue that can be accessed by public transportation. Look up the times of operation to make sure your event coincides with transit hours. Follow this link to access the Walla Walla Valley Transit resource. Representation refers to, but is not limited to, being inclusive of all people across culture, gender, race, geographic origin, citizenship, marital status, age, non-native speakers, abilities, sexual orientation and gender identity, religious affiliations, political viewpoints, educational backgrounds, and professional experience. Social isolation. People at risk of social isolation include people living with disabilities, people who are low income, seniors, etc. Underrepresentation. People or identities from non-dominant groups. Examples may include women in STEM fields, primary and secondary teachers of color, people with disabilities in high leadership positions. Variety of mediums. Find out how specific groups of people, including those who have historically felt not included, best receive communication, and then use those channels to communicate about programs and events. Examples may include posters, flyers, signs, handouts, social media, and the newspaper. Venue. Search for local ADA accessible venues when planning events. Walla Walla Accessible has compiled a list of venues and attractions that highlight ADA accessible spaces. Page 15, Author's Note. This guide is one of many resources your organization can use in pursuing, prioritizing, and inhabiting diversity, equity, and inclusion. We hope that this guide supports your commitment to this work and pushes your organization to see diversity, equity, and inclusion as a continuous, necessary practice. It's okay to start small and work to improve. This is just the beginning. We can't wait to see what you do. This is a living document that will be updated regularly. Please provide us with feedback on how you use this guide or how it could be improved by emailing us at bzpwallawallavalley@sharecare.com. Please reference the online resource for the most up-to-date version. Page 16, Acknowledgements. The work group that helped create the guide includes members from the following partner organizations: Blue Mountain Action Council, Commitment to Community, Walla Walla University Center for Humanitarian Engagement, Walla Walla Community College, Whitman College, Health Equity and Public Policy Fellow, City of College Place Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board, Community Resilience Initiative, Blue Zones Project Walla Walla Valley. Thank you to our valued community partners who helped refine and improve this guide in all of its stages.